Well, greetings and salutations, everybody, and welcome to Open Mic, the show where the mic is open, the floor, as they would say, is yours. What do you guys want to talk about? That is what we are here to discuss this afternoon or this evening, depending on where you are. Good to have you guys here. My name is John Campea. I'll be your host today. And yeah, Open Mic is just basically a more casual, laid-back version of the John Campea Show, where really the main thing we are here to do is to take your thoughts, opinions, talk about the topics you guys want to talk about here. And yes, starting at a little bit of a weird time here at 3:15 in the afternoon in Los Angeles, because in a little under 2 hours, Game 7 of the World Series. You know, baseball's not my favorite sport. Everybody knows that. But there are no two greater words in the world of sports than Game 7. And I'll tell you what. If you had told me at the beginning of this year that the two teams that I actually kind of follow and cheer for would both be facing off against each other in the World Series, I would have been a happy man, particularly with one of them being the Blue Jays. Go Jays, go. But you know, I'm in a good position. I win tonight no matter what. I mean, obviously, I'm cheering for the Toronto Blue Jays, get their third World Series. They have never lost a World Series that they've appeared in. They've only appeared in two, but they've won both of them. And, but then if the Dodgers win, you know, that's the local team that I root for normally, the Dodgers. Anne is a very passionate Dodgers fan, so she's going to be really happy if they win tonight. So you know what, guys? I win either way. And you know what? Big difference between, you know, Canadian sports fans and American sports fans. I already know what's going to happen tomorrow. If the Dodgers lose, all of LA Talk Radio tomorrow is going to be about what went wrong, the disaster. They're bums. They choked. Whereas, you know, if Toronto loses, it's going to be, my God, we're so proud of our boys. Getting to Game 7 of the World Series against maybe one of the most talented teams ever assembled in the history of baseball with I'm sorry, it's not even arguable anymore, the single greatest baseball player of all time in Shohei Ohtani. Oh, and by the way, you know, the other cast of characters they have. I'll tell you what, man. Yamamoto, I don't believe that guy's human. I want a DNA test. I think he's a cyborg from the future. I think Yamamoto is a cyborg from the future, and that the Los Angeles Dodgers are cheating by playing a cyborg from the future. Anyway, really proud of the Toronto Blue Jays. We're going to lose because I don't think if you had told any Toronto sports fan at the beginning of the year that the Toronto Blue Jays would be playing in the World Series, I don't think any of them would have believed you. So it's going to be great tonight either way. All right, guys, we're not here to talk about the World Series, even though tonight is Game 7. We're here to talk about the things you want to talk about. Now, as we do on Open Mic, I usually like to take a single topic and just kind of start off the conversation. You know what I mean? And earlier today, I was going to do something else, but earlier today, as I was perusing around the interwebs, came across a discussion going on about the question, is Zack Snyder the worst director of all time? Is Zack Snyder the worst director of all time? Now, had we been playing a John Campea Show version of Overreaction, I would have answered, good sir, that is an overreaction. But it did get me thinking as I started reading through the thing, a couple of questions about why does Zack Snyder, why does Zack Snyder elicit so much response that he gets? And gosh darn it, at the end of the day, is Zack Snyder actually that bad? So I thought we would take a few minutes to talk about it here. And we're going to go through some of his films and things like that. I want to start off by saying this. I think a part of the reaction and response to Zack Snyder on the negative side, like I think a part of the thing that's responsible for such strong negative reaction to Zack Snyder is the fact that you have these Snyder bros out there. Now, again, do not confuse Snyder bros. You guys know I say this all the time. Do not confuse Snyder bros with Snyder fans. Okay, they're two different things. Snyder fans are people who generally like the work of this Hollywood artist, Zack Snyder, and they like his work. The Snyder Bros are more of a toxic cesspool, the creamy substance of a giant ass pimple, who, it's not about the artistic work or anything like that. It really becomes, Zack Snyder becomes for them more of a lightning bolt for culture war, a lightning rod, for culture war and stuff like that. But you got to understand, they are a tiny minority. And I see too many people lumping in legitimate Zack Snyder fans with Snyder Bros, because they're not. Not everybody. Very few people who are legitimate Snyder fans are actually Snyder Bros. They're two different things. But I do think because of the Snyder Bros, who are like that one lone screaming whiny child in an Applebee's, makes it feel like the entire room is filled with screaming children. But no, as it turns out, it's one insufferable little brat in the back corner. That's Snyder Bros. And I think what happens is that because of the loud, incessant screeching of Snyder Bros, I think there's a lot of people out there who then hold that against Zack Snyder. And it's not even in response to Zack Snyder's work. It's in response to the incessant, unbearable, loud screeching and wailing of an impudent child. That's what they're really reacting to. I say this and I mean this honestly. Were Snyder Bros not to exist, I don't think there would be as many people online with such a strong negative reaction to Zack Snyder. Because again, I think a lot of the reaction, and this is just me theorizing, don't take this as statistical and researched fact. This is just my viewpoint and my observations as a film fan. But again, I think some of the stronger reaction against Zack Snyder isn't even about Zack Snyder. I think a lot of the stronger reaction against Zack Snyder is really reaction against Snyder Bros. And I could be right about that. I could be wrong about that. But that's just been my observation. All right, that's just been my observation. So is Zack Snyder really that bad? Well, let me bring up 3 films. 2 of them both have the words Rebel Moon in them. Listen, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. Those are, without exaggeration, they're not in the top 5, but the Rebel Moon films are 2 of the worst films I've ever seen. Again, not top 5, not Mount Olympus of the worst Hollywood movies ever made, but I mean, they are historically bad. They're really, really awful. I can't really think of many, if any, redeeming qualities about them. Now, I've seen other films do worse, but I mean, there's just no backing up and there's no justifying and there's no defending the Rebel Moon movies. All right. Now, of course, all films are subjective. If you're a fan of Rebel Moon, that's all that matters. If you like those movies, awesome. I'm just speaking from my own personal perspective, my own personal, reaction to the film, those 2 films. They are truly legendarily awful. So there's that. I also will bring up Sucker Punch. Sucker Punch is also a movie that is really quite terrible. But unlike Rebel Moon, got a bit of a cough, guys, so if you got to forgive me if I'm going to have some holes in my mouth sometimes. Unlike Rebel Moon, I think Sucker Punch has a number of things really going for it. I still think overall Sucker Punch is pretty bad. But it had, as a generally a bad film, it still had a lot of really good things going for it. It had some really good performances in it. Can't really say the same about Rebel Moon. But, I mean, it had some good performances in it. And my goodness, visually, Sucker Punch is gorgeous. I think Sucker Punch is a gorgeous film. It's really kind of where that and movies like 300 is where this kind of belief that, Zack Snyder Say what you will about anything else. Zack Snyder is a very gifted visual storyteller. A very gifted visual storyteller. Because, even a lot of the visuals, I got to say this, a lot of the visuals in Rebel Moon ended up being terrible. But even if you believe they're terrible, like I do, you can at least appreciate, I'll say this for Rebel Moon with the visuals, you can at least appreciate the grand vision that like Zack Snyder had for it, right? And I think that's something you can appreciate. So there's the 2 Rebel Moon movies. There's Sucker Punch. Guys, I'm here to tell you that I like just about every single other of Zack Snyder's movies. Now, as far as Rebel Moon goes, everybody's got a bad day at the office, okay? Steven Spielberg made The Terminal, for heaven's sakes. Greatest filmmaker of all time, has a bad movie or two, all right? Everybody's had a bad day at the office. And I think Rebel Moon might have been those for Zack Snyder. And again, Sucker Punch, I think, is a bad film, but it had some really, really good, strong, positive things about it. I thought we would take a minute and kind of run down through the filmography of Zack Snyder, because I'm here to tell you that no, I don't think Zack Snyder's that bad. As a matter of fact, I'll go one step further. And I know some people won't like this, and that's fine. I quite appreciate Zack Snyder as a director. I really do. I think he's quite good. John, you just said those 2 films are terrible. Yeah, but guess what? Michael Jordan missed a lot of shots. He was still Michael Jordan. I'm not saying Zack Snyder's Michael Jordan, okay? I'm not. I'm saying Michael Jordan missed a lot of shots. Tom Brady threw some interceptions. Wayne Gretzky missed a couple of open nets. It happens. If you just want to pick the worst moment of anybody's career, of course you're going to be able to paint their career looking terrible. But if you're going to be more holistic and take a step back and say, let's look at his body of work, I submit to you that a pretty good director emerges when you step back and take a look at his wider body of work. Let's go over to his IMDb page here. Now, he did a lot of music videos, but his first real film of note was 2004's Dawn of the Dead. And Rob likes to talk about this movie a lot because this is one of those movies where, yes, standard trope zombie film, Zack Snyder actually made a really good remake and quite an enjoyable film. Really good remake, quite an enjoyable film. And, Rob likes to talk about it because, Rob often says that he was against this movie at first because he's such a fan of the original. But, even Rob says, man, it won me over. That movie really won me over. And again, somebody just mentioned in the live chat, I think it's Spirit Man is saying, I believe you're right. I think James Gunn actually wrote the script for it, if I'm not mistaken. I believe James Gunn wrote it. Again, I could be wrong about that, but I believe James Gunn wrote it. Which a lot of Snyder bros don't like hearing. By the way, X-Men Superfans at it again, sending out gift memberships. Thank you for that, X-Men Superfan. Appreciate you. So, yeah, there's Dawn of the Dead. Now, then he followed that up by what we all probably agree was truly his breakout film, 300. I watched 300 again last year. That movie's great. He did so much with so little. It was so beautifully stylized. It was badass. The performances he got out of the actors in that. Listen, yes, it's kind of stereotypical to really point to 300, but there's a reason for that. The movie is great. 300 is just not another good movie on his filmography. 300 is great. And a lot of that, a bunch of it has to do with the original source material, sure. But we've all seen tons of movies based on original source material that was good, and the movies turned out terrible. Zack Snyder brought that thing to life in a beautiful way. And I don't think today we give him enough credit for that. Because that movie was great. All right. Now, here's one that's kind of polarizing. As we talk about Watchmen, I'm going to go on record right now and say that I don't love Watchmen. I'll be honest with you. I don't love Watchmen. It's never on my priority list to rewatch it. I don't think it was that good. Well, John, you might be saying to yourself, why didn't you list Watchmen with the films of his you don't like? I'll tell you why. Because for years, many, many, many years, everybody insisted that Watchmen was like that one comic book thing that was completely unfilmable. Completely unfilmable. And I got to tell you what, while I may not love the movie as a whole, I am absolutely amazed by the job Zack Snyder did with it. And listen, I may not be the biggest fan of that movie, but this movie has a lot of fans. And I think that's a testament to like really the ability that he had to take source material that many people said for many years was absolutely unfilmable. You can't really make a Watchmen movie. And Zack Snyder came along and said, challenge accepted, and he made a Watchmen movie. Now, do I think it's one of the greatest things ever? No, but it turned out a lot better than I thought it was ever possible to make a Watchmen into a live action movie. And the movie has a lot of fans. And, you know, I think when you look around the fanscape today, you know, people either really like Watchmen or really dislike it. But again, the fact that he was able to make it when I think a lot of other filmmakers just straight up wouldn't have been able to make it at all, I think is pretty impressive. Yeah, somebody's saying, you know, he changed the ending. Well, guess what? 99% of comic book movies change stuff from the source material if they think it'll work well on the big screen. I'm going to be honest with you. Yeah, I think if you did, this is just my opinion, there are going to be others who disagree, and that's fine. You tried to do the ending of the comic, The Watchmen, in movie form, I think it would have come across as ridiculous. I'll say it. I think it would have come across as utterly ridiculous. Came across as awesome on the printed page. Personally, I think it would have come across as absolutely ridiculous in the final thing. Would not have played well, I don't think. Anyway, that all being said, as we get up to Watchmen, I think Watchmen is, even though I'm not the biggest fan of it, it's an incredible accomplishment, I think, what he did with that. And I think that needs to be acknowledged. After Watchmen, we get to what I think, other than Man of Steel, is his most underrated film. I'm going to tell you what, The Legend of the Guardians, The Owls of Gaul, is not in my top 5 favorite animated films of all time, but I love this movie. I think this is not just an underrated film. This is a really good, fun little movie with awe-inspiring, sweeping visuals. You know, it's hard to say visual effects or cinematography when you're talking about animation, but I don't know how else to describe it. Wonderful characters, good story. I think this is a really odd, but kind of cool follow-up to The Watchmen with him doing Legends of the Guardian. So, I mean, I really like that. So what have we talked about so far? We've talked about, we've talked about Dawn of the Dead, talked about 300, talked about Watchmen, talked about Legends of Ghoul. All of these so far, I think he did a really good job on. Even the one that I didn't love so much, I still think he did a remarkable job. Well, after that, now we get to Sucker Punch. Okay, now we get to Sucker Punch. Now, I admit a little bit of a bias for this movie because actress Jamie Chung, who's in it, that's Anne's sorority sister. She's my wife's sorority sister. As a matter of fact, of course, Jamie's been in a whole bunch of stuff. She's a wonderful actress. Some of you may not have heard this story. The first time I ever went to interview Jamie Chung, it was for Sucker Punch. I went to go interview her for Sucker Punch. And my wife, Ann, goes, "Oh, Jamie Chung's in that movie." I'm like, yeah. She goes, "You know, I went to school. She was my sorority sister." I'm like, "Really?" She goes, "Yeah." She goes, "Wait a minute." And so Ann goes And she pulls out this picture, and it's a big group picture. And Jamie's in the picture, and Anne's in the picture. And Anne goes, when you go in to talk to her, show her this picture. I'm like, okay, cool. So I go in to interview Jamie. This was my first time ever meeting her. And I sit down, I walk into the room, do the interview, shake her hand, introduce myself. I said, by the way, I was told to show you this. And I showed her the picture. She's like, oh my God. Like, she just freaked out. Where did you get this? I said, well, I got this picture from my wife. She's like, who's your wife? And I point to Anne. She's like, Anne Ora? You're married to Anne Ora? I'm like, yeah. And she's like, how is she? I said, well, as a matter of fact, she came with me today. She's downstairs in the waiting room. And Jamie was so cool. She like turns to the little director in the interview room. She goes, I need 5 minutes. And Jamie gets up, leaves the room, goes downstairs, and goes to see Anne. I guess they haven't seen each other in a bunch of years. So obviously I'm kind of biased that I think Jamie is awesome in the movie, but granted, I'm biased. But when you take my bias away from it, again, some really good performances. I think Emily Browning was great in it. Abby Cornish was great. I love Jenna Malone. I love Vanessa Hudgens, Jamie Chung, of course. A much younger Oscar Isaac was in there. And again, I wanted to love this movie overall. I really did. I just thought narrative, the whole story. Again, I often say, if you go to watch Sucker Punch and then just hit mute and make up the dialogue, like watch the movie on mute and then make up the dialogue and the narrative and the story in your own head that's going along with the visuals, it's a much better movie. It's a much better movie. Yeah, again, I got to put this one under his losses. Okay, so there's Sucker Punch. Fine, there's Sucker Punch. Then comes the movie. The movie. My boy, Henry Cavill, still standing in my office here. The most underrated comic book film in the history of comic book films. My all-time favorite Superman movie. Don't get me wrong. I love the new Superman movie. I love James Gunn's Superman movie. I love David Cornsweet in it. Love that movie. I think it's great. But still, my all-time favorite Superman movie. Man of Steel. Listen, you don't need me to wax poetic here for the next 15 minutes about Man of Steel. You guys know how I feel about Man of Steel. You guys know I love this movie. I think it's great. I think it's magnificent. And the most underrated, underappreciated film. It's just one of those movies that, that the more I watch it, the better I think it is. I just think it's a fantastic film. So I don't need to go on about that much longer. All right. Then after Man of Steel comes Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. Now, I should say this about Man of Steel as well. Very divided film. Half the critics didn't like it. I still get a lot. Whenever I talk about how much I love Man of Steel, I still get people yelling at me, Man of Steel sucks. And that's fine. Look, it wasn't for everybody. Got to admit it. True. Still my favorite, but got to admit, wasn't for everybody. Did not go over the way they were kind of hoping it would go over. And then you get to Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. And now I don't think Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice is as good as Man of Steel, but it was still the same reaction for me. Like, I still really liked it. And I'm not even talking about like the extended version. I mean, the way he made it, the theatrical version he released, I really liked it. I stand by that to this day. I won't back down off that. I really like that film. But again, like Man of Steel, have to acknowledge that a lot of people didn't. A lot of the critics didn't like it. A lot of the audience didn't like it. I mean, it just was what it was. But for me personally, I thought it was really good. Then, of course, we get to one of the most lightning rod controversy movies of all time with Justice League. Again, a movie I thought was good when I saw it in theaters. I think the HBO version is even better, but I even like the theatrical version. And again, I do think the extended version is better, although the extended version could have been so much better if he actually edited it a little bit, but that's besides the point. So I'm a fan of Justice League, both versions. Then, of course, there was the HBO version. And then, listen, after all the controversy about Zack Snyder's Justice League, then he does this little movie called Army of the Dead with Dave Bautista. You know what? I really like this movie. I really liked Army of the Dead. I mean, listen, is it deep? No. Is it groundbreaking? No. Is it a movie that'll be memorable 20 years from now? No. But you know what? It's a zombie movie. Whatever. I went into it. Listen, I like Zack Snyder, but I admit I went into Army of the Dead a little skeptical. I did. But I had fun with it. I thought it was good. I had a good time. I think I might have watched it again a little bit. Like, I went to go see it in theaters. I was lucky enough to see it in a theatrical exhibition of it. And then I watched it one more time on streaming. And I haven't watched it a bunch of time since. But I think this is a fun little film. I really like it. I really like it. All right. Then he directed an episode of the Stephen Colbert Show. And then, of course, we get to the Rebel Moons. And we've already talked about Rebel Moons. So look. Yeah, Rebel Moons and Sucker Punch notwithstanding, this is the guy who did the Dawn of the Dead, which I thought was really good. 300, which was a great accomplishment. But did I say 300? No, 300 was amazing. Then Watchmen, which was a great accomplishment. He did a really underrated little animated film called Legend of the Guardians of the Gaul. He did Man of Steel, which I think is the most underrated comic book film of all time. I like Batman versus Superman. I don't care if you don't like that, I do, but I did. And I like Justice League, both versions. And you know what? To me, when you step back and look at the totality of the work of Zack Snyder, I think if you're being objective, I think you got to say, you know what? He's got a pretty good resume. Some really good highlights, some pretty bad low ones, sure. And a bunch of things in the middle there that are actually pretty good. So I am going to stand here and say, no, I don't think Zack Snyder's that. I actually think Zack Snyder's a good director, man. I think he's a good director. I look forward to his new films. Actually, he's got one coming up that they've been talking about that he's filming right now called The Last Photograph, which I think sounds really interesting. So you know what? If you came to this video looking for a great smear thing on Zack Snyder, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I think Zack Snyder's a good director. I consider myself a Zack Snyder fan. Yeah, there's a couple of movies he hated, sure, but I hate a couple of Steven Spielberg movies, and I think he's the greatest director of all time. So, yeah. I mean, I detest the Snyder Bros and everything they represent, but I still count myself as a Zack Snyder fan. And, yeah, so there's that. All right, guys. With that down now, let's get on to the real reason we are here, which is to take your live comments and questions. Now, one of our last shows that we did, the final couple of Super Chat questions that came in didn't make it onto my scroll, so I missed them. So we're going to start off today by getting caught up a little bit with some of the questions that were actually sent in a couple of days ago. So if one or two of these questions sound a little out of date, that is why. So we're going to start off here. And by the way, if you want to send in a question, you have to be watching live. Go ahead and use the Super Chat feature over in the live chat. And let's get to it. We're starting things off here with Crimson ID4, who writes, personally, I'm somewhat wary of any tech company buying Warner Brothers, considering what's happened twice before, especially if they start with the letter A. Yeah, well, here's the thing. The AT&T era, when they owned Warner Brothers, look, let's call it what it is. It was an utter and complete disaster. It was a complete disaster. They lost like 60 to 70 billion dollars worth of value. The DCEU never really found its footing, and it ended off on such a quiet fart in the wind whisper, with a bunch of their movies not even making $200 million at the box office. Them alienating all their production partners and alienating a lot of talent, like Christopher Nolan writing a big op-ed piece in one of the big Hollywood major trays saying, F you, Warner Brothers, and left Warner Brothers, and that happened with a lot of talent. The AT&T ownership was a disaster. But that being said, the other one that starts with an A, Amazon, that is very interested in buying Warner Brothers, they have put together a really good entertainment division. They now own NGM. We've got, and even their television stuff, Marvelous Ms. Maisel is one of the best shows that's been out in a long time. The Boys, Gen V. Of course, we just had Fallout. I almost froze on Fallout. Fallout was absolutely incredible. They've got God of War coming. Look, Amazon isn't my number one choice to buy Warner Brothers, to be honest with you, but I wouldn't be too upset if they did. I wouldn't be too upset if they did, because I think they've done some really, really good stuff. Anyway, Mike Cat writes, Frankenstein in theaters, 9 out of 10 to me. Yeah, man, I'm glad you went to go see it. I saw the new Guillermo del Toro film, Frankenstein in theaters. I don't know if I'll call it my favorite Guillermo del Toro movie ever, but it's really close with Pan's Labyrinth for me. As you know, if you ask me again in 3 or 4 months, I might say it's now my favorite one. But it's absolutely my favorite Frankenstein movie ever made. I loved it. If you guys get a chance to see it in theaters, go see it in theaters. All right. Terrence Fisher writes, what new camera did you get? Yes, I have a new camera. I just started using it a day or two ago. For about 5 or 6 years, I've been using Sony A6400s with 1 or 2 Canon M50 Mark IIs around, but most of the cameras, my main workhorse camera has been a Sony A6400 with a Sigma 16 millimeter prime lens. I've been using that for about 6 years. I have now switched over to a full frame. It's a couple years old now. I bought it brand new though. I'm now using a Sony A7C is what it's called. A Sony A7C with a Sony G Master 20, I believe it's a 24 millimeter lens, prime lens on it. And I gotta tell you, I love it so far. I love this camera. I really, really do. It's got some capabilities in it the A6400 didn't have, and I'm really liking it. Thank you for asking, man. All right, next up. Unfiltered writes, big fan here. Thank you so much. When are you coming to Orlando? I'm coming to Orlando in November. This month. It's November now. I almost forgot. This month. In about 3 weeks. I'm going to be in Orlando somewhere between, I haven't got the exact date hammered down yet, but it's going to be somewhere between the 22nd and the 26th. Watch the show for the nailed down final details about the exact date and the location, the movie theater that we'll be doing the movie meetup at. All right. Next up, we got Numbers Head writes, I see the good in HBO on Netflix. More eyes for that vast library of great shows and content. I ran into so many people that have never seen HBO shows. I mean, here's the thing. The good of, well, hey, maybe now more people can watch Sopranos and more people can watch 6 Feet Under and more people can watch The Wire and more people can watch like these iconic greatest shows of all time kind of things that have been on HBO, but they've never been able to see because it's been on HBO. If it's on Netflix, they'll be able to see it. You're right. That's a good thing. But everything moving forward looks bad. That's my problem with Netflix. Everything moving forward looks bad. Netflix has no value on movies, on film. They have no incentive to make them good. They have the worst batting average out of any movie producer in the world, with the highest percentage of their movies getting made being absolute garbage. So is that a benefit? that more people will be able to take a look and see some of these classic HBO shows. I won't disagree with you about that. I think you've got a point, but I just think there's so much negative with it. It totally outweighs any potential positive things. But that's just my opinion, numbers. Thanks. All right. Team Caboozles writes, John, have any of Anne's tastes in movies or TV rubbed off on you over time, or something you were not a fan of and worn down over time and now enjoy? That's a good question. Are there things that I didn't used to like, but Anne likes, and now those tastes have kind of rubbed off on me? I will say this. It's not in the world of movies or TV shows, but close. I mean, you can't tell by looking at me right now, but if you guys have watched me all the way back in the movie blog days and even in the AMC days, I have zero fashion sense. None. I dress like a schlub. I admit it. I do. I don't have anybody to impress. I dress like a total schlub on my own and stuff like that. But if you look at me now when I go out, I look a lot better than I used to, and that's all because of Anne. Anne got my fashion game a little bit bumped up on the scale there. That's probably been the biggest influence she's had on me. All right. Thanks for that, Team Caboozle. Chris Espinoza writes, I know Man of Steel is your favorite, but is there anything you like better in Superman than Man of Steel? Just out of curiosity. That's a good question. So yeah, Superman, I love it. Love this movie. Man of Steel is still my personal favorite of the Superman movies. But yeah, I will say there are a couple of things about Superman that are better than Man of Steel. First and foremost is Lois Lane. Now, Amy Adams is an all-time great actress. She's one of the best on the planet. But you can have one of the best performers on the planet, but if you have them in a movie that's not quite a good fit for them, in a role that's not a good fit, it can come off wrong. And I never felt the chemistry between Henry Cavill and Amy Adams. Again, I'm not saying Rachel Brosnahan is a better actress than Amy Adams. Heavens no, I'm not saying that. But I'm saying Rachel was a much better fit for Lois Lane, and her chemistry with David Cornsweet was much better than Amy Adams' chemistry with my boy Henry Cavill. So that's one thing. While I think there's some wonderful moments of levity and some really good humorous moments in Man of Steel, I think the humor in Superman was better. Yeah, I think the humor in Superman was better. I think there's, I mean, I like the color palette in Man of Steel, but I think the color palette in Superman was better. So yes, I think Man of Steel is the better movie overall, but yeah, there's certainly a number of elements about Superman that I thought were better than Man of Steel. Those are just a couple. Good question, man. All right, next up. Dallas Designer writes, if Netflix succeeds in acquiring Warner Brothers, would it take away some of the prestige of HBO content, thereby devaluing it? Pardon me. Not necessarily. Listen, I just finished talking about how Netflix is absolutely by far, like not even close. I think Asylum has a better win percentage with the movies they make than Netflix does. Netflix is the worst when it comes to making original films. Maybe about 3 or 4 good ones out of every 100, and that's not an exaggeration. That being said, Netflix is very good with their television. Yeah, they put out some crap. Absolutely they do. But they make some really good shows. Not on the same level as HBO, but they make some really, really good shows, man. And so I have a feeling that they'll keep, if Netflix does buy it, I think they will keep the HBO brand. You know, we talked about this on the show the other day. I think HBO will become a subsection of Netflix. So you'll load up Netflix and you'll have an option to go into the HBO section. And I think they'll keep a lot of the creative team in place. So no, I don't think it would devalue HBO. I think it might devalue Warner Brothers, but I don't think it would devalue HBO. That's just a guess. Ask me again in a couple of weeks. I might have a totally different opinion on that. All right. Thanks for that, Dallas. Next up, Alex writes, really love the rise of stardom that's happening to Glenn Powell. Have you checked out his show, Chad Powers? You know what? Right now I'm in a massive countdown for watching The Running Man. The new Edgar Wright movie that he's starring in. Cannot wait to watch that movie. I think it looks absolutely wonderful. I have not watched Chad Powers yet. And I think the reason I haven't watched it is because I know what it's based on. I'm sure some of you do too, but I'm sure some of you don't. Chad Powers is based on a little skit that Eli Manning did a few years ago. A great skit. Pardon me. It's all based on this thing where Eli Manning went to, I can't remember which college it was, and he acted as a walk-on guy trying out for the team during a team practice. And he put himself in all this prosthetic makeup so people couldn't recognize him. And he keeps talking about himself in the third person. Chad Powers throws deep. Yeah, he talks about himself in the third person. And it's really funny. All of a sudden he's out there and he's ripping these passes that no college quarterback should be able to do. And then he reveals that it's him. And he called himself Chad Powers. Well, they've made an entire TV series out of that skit. So I have to admit, as much as I love Glenn Powell, and I really do, I've had a hard time getting motivated to watch Chad Powers. No, it's an entire series based on a sketch. But I will say this, I've heard good things about it. So I might have to check it out here at some point. All right. Thanks for that, Alex. Next up, Alex also writes, sports related, but where do you rank Steph Curry in your personal opinion? Like, where do I rank Steph Curry today? All time? I mean, look, Steph Curry's a beast, man. Who wouldn't want Steph Curry on their team? Now, he's not as good. Like, look, I think this is fair to say. I think he is the best pure shooter the NBA's ever seen. And that's hard for me to say because I'm a Larry Bird guy. And I think Larry Bird has been the best pure shooter the NBA's ever seen until Steph Curry. Steph Curry is the single most pure, best, most talented shooter the league's ever seen. But, and I would want him on my team. But, you know, is he as good of an all-around basketball player as, say, as Joker? No, he's not. Like, he's not nearly as good as an overall basketball player as Joker. Joker is the best basketball player on the planet. I'm not a fan of the Denver Nuggets at all, but Joker's the best basketball player on the planet. Like, it's laughable how it's not even really close. He's the best basketball player on the planet. All due respect to my fellow from my hometown of Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, SGA. All due respect to SGA, for a good Hamilton boy, my hometown, went to St. Thomas More High School, the rival high school to my St. Jean de Brebeuf High School, just a couple of miles apart from each other. Love SGA. But Joker's the best player on the planet right now. I mean, I just don't know how to take anybody seriously who doesn't recognize that. But Steph, on the all-time best pure shooters list, he's it. It's him. It's Steph. That's it. He's electrifying. He's insane to watch. And he's still doing it at such a high level at this point in his career. It's kind of crazy how good he is. All right. Next up, Alex Pitt writes, I went to a secret screening on Halloween, but Cineworld, you must be in the UK, but Cineworld advertised it as being a classic horror film. When they revealed it was Terrifier 3, the audience was not happy. They lied to sell movie tickets. Did they lie, though? Now, listen, I don't like the Terrifier movies. They're not for me. But a lot of people would consider the Terrifier films classic. I don't. Was it a little misleading? Maybe it was a little misleading. I wouldn't go so far as to say they lied, because there are a bunch of people out there who would consider the Terrifier films classic. But when you say a classic horror film, you're probably going in thinking you're going to see Friday the 13th Part 2, or you think you're going to see, Nightmare on Elm Street, or you think you're going to see Halloween or something like that. I wouldn't say they lied, but maybe Alex was a little misleading. You're probably, I don't know if I can disagree with you about that. All right. Alan S. writes, go Jays, go. I hope they win tonight. I hope they win tonight too, man. But you know what? Even if they don't, I'm so proud of them. So proud. Nobody gave them a chance at the beginning of the year. Nobody gave them a chance. Even when the playoffs started, even when they won, 94 games or however many games they won, even when they won all those games, nobody gave them a chance. No one took them seriously. And here they are in Game 7 of the World Series against the LA Dodgers. I'm so proud of them. So proud of them, win or lose. All right, Stephen Joseph writes, do you have the NFL Sunday ticket package? I do. Yep, we watch a lot of football on Sundays around here. You know, our general Sunday routine, like tomorrow's going to be, is we get up, and NFL starts at 10 a.m. in Los Angeles. We start watching the games. We have a whole bunch of our friends come over. We barbecue. We make a lot of food, and we watch the games all the way through to the Sunday night game. And a lot of that has to do with having the NFL Sunday package, being able to pick the games I want to see. All right, thanks for that, Steve. Next up, Jalen Johnson writes, Sean Chandler, I like Sean very much. Him and his wife came out here and hung out with us, Ann and I, for a bit. Anyway, Sean Chandler put it best. Zack Snyder is spicy food. You either like it or you don't. I don't know that I agree with that. Here's the reason why I don't know if I agree with Sean's analogy on this. Because that's painting a picture where you either like Zack Snyder movies, all of them, or you don't. Like spicy food, I can't eat spicy food. I have an absolute wussy tolerance to spicy food. I'm the worst. I think my dad would look at me as like, are we sure this is my kid? My dad eating straight up hot peppers off the barbecue and just biting into them. Whereas when I eat wings, I kid you not, I can't even have mild. I have to either have dry or like a sweet barbecue or a honey garlic. I can't even eat mild. If they ever put me on hot ones, it would be the shortest episode in history of that show. I'm terrible. But so for me, if any food is spicy, that's off the menu for me. And I don't know that that's true of Zack Snyder. Because even take somebody like me. I hate Rebel Moon. I hated the second Rebel Moon. I don't like Sucker Punch. Even though I think his accomplishment was remarkable, I'm not a big fan of Watchmen, but he's got a lot of movies I love. He's got a lot of movies I love. I think there are directors who are like that. Like you either like their movies or you don't. But I think with Zack Snyder, he has better and worse movies. He has movies that people can like, and then other movies that the same people might not like. So yeah, I will respectfully disagree a little bit with Sean's analogy. I see where he's going with it though, but I'm going to respectfully disagree with his analogy a little bit. All right. Next up. Sorry, I got to reset. Give me a second here as I reset. By the way, guys, I am going to now turn off the super chats because we got the World Series here starting in a bit, and we've got some people coming over to watch it, so I want to make sure I'm ready to go. So I'm turning off the super chats. If you did not get a chance to get your super chat in, next time, my friends. All right, let's pick things up here. And where did I leave off? Let me see here. I left off with, boy, I still have a bunch to get through. Yes, there it is. Okay, Sean Chandler, that was Jalen. All right, next up, we go to Colton Ogburn, who writes, fan from Screen Crush. Oh, I'm a big fan of Screen Crush. Ryan Airy and I've spoken with Ryan. Ryan and I even talked about him coming on and doing a guest spot on the John Campea show. If you guys don't watch Screen Crush's videos, they make some really, really great videos. I'm a fan of Screen Crush. Anyway, Colton writes, fan from Screen Crush, could Ellison's inability to keep Sheridan at Paramount spell doom for his ability to keep James Gunn at DC? He may run him off. It's possible, but here's the difference between the Taylor Sheridan situation and the James Gunn situation. Taylor Sheridan's deals were coming to an end. They were over. They were coming to an end. James Gunn and Peter Safran are both David Zaslav's guys. James is David Zaslav's guy. Just like DeLuca and Abdi are David Zaslav's people for running the Warner Brothers Pictures side. And so he just upped them with a new deal. Quote me on this. Before any merger happens with Warner Brothers, you're going to see James Gunn get a new deal too, I think. I really do. But at any rate, it's possible. But, you know, I don't think there is much that's similar between the David Ellison and Taylor Sheridan situation, particularly Sheridan's situation. There's not a lot that resembles Sheridan's situation and James Gunn's situation. Does it make me a little nervous? It does. Because listen, I'll tell you what, while I like a lot of the things that David Ellison has done since taking over Paramount and somewhat what their plans are, there's a number of things I really like that they're doing. I do. But the way he botched the Taylor Sheridan situation, you had to have that one. You couldn't let Taylor Sheridan go. You have to figure out a way to make that work. That's what leaders do. And he botched it. And he lost the white whale, man. Or as they would say in the Hot Tub Time Machine, the great white buffalo. Great white buffalo. Some of you don't know that reference, and that's fine. That concerns me. It really does. Like, how do you have Taylor Sheridan, who's by far your most valuable piece, and you let him get away? So look, I just don't think there's much similarity between Sheridan's situation and James Gunn's, but it does give me a little bit of a cause for concern, at least a little bit. All right. That down. Let's move on. Thank you for that, Colton. ZOMG Ruler writes, every director has a bad day at the office, right? Yeah, I was just saying that, 100%. I mean, the only director I don't think has had a bad day at the office is maybe Christopher Nolan, and he will. He will. Denis Villeneuve also has not had a bad day at the office, but he will. When they've been making movies as long as Marty Scorsese or Steven Spielberg have, they'll have bad days at the office. They will. Hell, even Quentin Tarantino had a bad day at the office with Death Proof. You guys know I'm a massive Quentin Tarantino fan. Death Proof sucks. Even Quentin Tarantino had a bad day. Every director has a bad day at the office, even Zack Snyder. And most of them have a couple of bad days at the office. All right. LD writes, you need a flashlight to watch Zack Snyder movies. Yeah, I mean, one of the criticisms he gets, that's kind of like saying you need to have a hearing aid to watch Christopher Nolan movies. Because, I mean, listen, as great as Christopher Nolan is, man, a lot of his movies have terrible sound mix. But anyway, yeah, a lot of people, when they talk about Zack Snyder, one of the things they'll criticize, and I get it, it's fair, is the color palette and the visual tone. I get that. I think that's fair. But that's fixable too. That's fixable. Let me put it this way. None of his films have ever had a color palette that has taken me out of the movie or turned me off the movie. You know what I mean? Like, I think, and sometimes it really works for the movie. Like, I think the color palette, it gets a lot of criticism. But I think the color palette that Zack Snyder chose for his Superman movie, Man of Steel, I thought it worked for that movie. But I get it. It's a valid criticism, and it is what it is. All right, thanks for that, LD. Next up, C-Dub sends in a $20 super chat. Thank you, C-Dub, for supporting us on that level, man. I super appreciate that. And C-Dub writes, I like Snyder, but if we're being honest, we already know what his DCU looks like. Jared Leto as the Joker, so much slow-mo, lens flares, and some generic dialogue. RB was supposed to be... I have no idea what we're talking about. RB was supposed to be a SW's... Guys, please do not write in acronyms. Don't write in acronyms. Because you're writing in stuff and I don't know what it is you're trying to get at. So, and I can't spend time here trying to interpret it or figure it out. I don't think Zack Snyder is the one who cast Jared Leto. By the way, hot take for you. I'll give it to you. I don't care. Y'all are wrong about Jared Leto as Joker. Jared Leto played a really interesting Joker. Now, he played the Joker that they wrote. That's the Joker they wrote. And it's still amazing to me how many movie fans don't understand the difference between the performer and the script. A lot of people are still under the impression like it's the performer is the one who makes up everything that the character says. No, they're not. Anyway, I still stand behind that he portrayed that Joker perfectly for the way it was written. Perfectly. Listen, I think the best thing about that Suicide Squad movie is that toxic, codependent relationship between Harley and Joker. I thought, and listen, I don't care what anybody says. I don't care. That scene in the club, that scene with Common, and the Joker and Harley and Common in there, I love that scene. That scene is so good. Anyway, there's a lot of people who don't like that iteration of Joker and they blame Jared Leto for it. I will die on this hill. Jared Leto did a great job performing that Joker and bringing it to life the way it was written in the script, which is the job of the actor. And I thought he did a great job of that. And I'll stand behind that. I continue to stand behind it this day. That being said, I can be corrected here. I might be wrong, but I don't think Zack Snyder cast Jared Leto. I don't think that he's the one who cast Jared Leto. And by the way, talking about like some generic dialogue. Well, every movie has some generic dialogue, but if you look at movies like Man of Steel, there's some great dialogue in there too. Now look, the bottom line is this. Zack Snyder's DC universe did not work. I liked it. I know a few other people that liked it. But overall, it did not work for the larger movie-going audience. It just didn't. And I'm man enough to say that while Henry's my boy, and that's my all-time favorite Superman movie, and I like all the stuff that he did with DC, I am man enough to acknowledge the fact that just because it worked for me, didn't work for a lot of people. And it died. It didn't work. And that doesn't mean I still don't have an appreciation for them myself. It doesn't mean I don't think there's still a lot of things in there that I thought were very good. But the reality is it did not work. It just didn't. And everybody, like all the people who are like, well, if they just let him keep making them, guys, the definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Like people just think magically that if they just let Zack Snyder keep making movies, everybody who doesn't like his movies will suddenly magically like his movies. It wasn't going to work that way with DC. It just never was. And they needed to move on from it. And that's okay. I got Man of Steel. I got Batman vs. Superman. I got 2 versions of Justice League. I got out of that cinematic universe, I got that one Flash movie that I absolutely, absolutely loved. We got the first Wonder Woman movie. We got the first Aquaman. Look, we got some things out of it that I really loved, but better to have loved and to have lost than to never have loved at all. Anyway. All right. Thanks for sending that in, C-Dub. Appreciate it, man. Next up, Garibay writes, 1 of 2. Hello, John. I finally realized what I would like to do as a career, and that's to try and be a casting director. Interesting. I've done a little research, and it seems like doing an internship is the best way to get started, but I want to see if there was maybe some other option you might recommend. I would be coming from Minnesota, so I wanted to weigh in all my options. Thank you for all you do. All right, well, here's the reality. You might as well be asking me the best way to get a heart surgeon internship, because I'm not a heart surgeon. I'm not a Hollywood casting director. I am simply the wrong guy to ask. I will say this, though. I will say this. While we all lament the fact, and we've talked a lot on the show about how much of Hollywood has moved out of LA and moved away from California. I mean, still a whole hell of a lot of production happens here. Yes. And you can come here, but one of the silver linings of that decentralization of Hollywood is that you don't necessarily, if you want to get into the movie business, you don't necessarily have to move to LA or New York to do it. There are more vibrant hotspots of production around the country now than there were 10 years ago. So it's not just LA you'd have to move to. Now, I would suggest this. This is my general thoughts on this. Go to film school, major in the area that would put you in line of something like with production stuff, particularly casting, directing. Get that under your belt first. Then from there, use the networking opportunities that school provides for you to get some good internships, some entry-level jobs, stuff like that. That would be my advice for anybody looking to get involved in any level of filmmaking. But I always start with saying the one thing nobody wants to hear. Nobody wants to hear me say, go to film school. Everybody's looking for a shortcut. Yeah, but can I get into it without going to film school? It's not impossible, but you greatly increase your chances of success if you go to film school. And again, I get it. That's the one part nobody wants to hear. Everybody wants to hear the shortcut. But the reality is, I think the path that gives you your best chance of success, it doesn't guarantee success, but the path that gives you the best opportunity for success, I believe, starts with film school. I just know look, back in the AMC days and Collider, and even today, when I'm looking at resumes, the first thing I look for, hey, depending on what the job was, this person got a journalism degree. That puts them at the top of my list. Oh, this person did this. Oh, and I think that's your best option. Again, it doesn't guarantee success. I just think it gives you your best opportunity for success. So that's the best piece of advice I can give you, my friend. Good luck on that. I think that's great that you've got a really specific area you want to get involved with. I think that's awesome. All right, next up. X-Men Superfan writes in, I used to like a lot of Zack's films, but as of late, the Snyder Bros have soured my view on the whole thing. The only DCU film he did I enjoyed was his cut of the Justice League, and as a gay person, 300 is great. Well, listen, you can be a complete straight as an arrow, boringly heterosexual dude like me and think 300 is great. Listen, I got to say, you're not alone, right? As much as I wax poetic about Man of Steel and Batman versus Superman and both the theatrical and the HBO versions of Justice League, the reality is you're not alone. There were a lot of people who did not like that stuff. A lot. And the DCEU just never got its footing. Things were starting to look promising when Wonder Woman came out. And when Aquaman came out, they were the first two really kind of, particularly Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman was the first bona fide hit for them in the sense that it made good box office money. The critics liked it. The audiences liked it. And I remember after watching Wonder Woman, I had a new rush sense of optimism for the DCEU. But they were never able really to follow that up, not even with the Wonder Woman sequel, because Wonder Woman 84 was terrible. But yeah, so you're not alone. X-Men Superfan, you are not alone in that feeling. All right, thank you for that. Christopher Brickner writes, John, are you going to watch Game 7 of the World Series tonight? As soon as I'm done this stream, I am. With the Blue Jays in the World Series, has unsurprisingly had great ratings in Canada. Oh, yeah, listen, that's the thing, man. Like, okay, I'm going to say something that's going to rub some people the wrong way, okay? But I think if you really think about it, you know it's true. Canada is by far, we have our differences, always have, Canadians. But when it comes down to it, Canadians look at their fellow Canadians and we're like, we're Canadian. And there is a unity amongst Canadians, even when we have like different political beliefs and stuff like that. At the end of the day, when push comes to shove, Canadians love Canadians. And we are very much, again, you'll see our spats, you'll see our differences. Of course you will. But Canadians are a unified people. The United States is not. Like, it's not. I'm not saying the United States isn't good. There's a lot of things I love about living down here. Really are. But I mean, to say that the United States is a country that hates itself, I don't think that's an exaggeration. Like, you literally got a president in the White House who says anybody that goes to a protest is a radical extremist against him. Like, that they're garbage, they're filthy, they're dirtying the blood of our country, and blah blah blah. And listen, it's the other way as well. Like, you have two sides in this country that really, it's not, in Canada, it's, we call it an adversarial system. But here, it's not adversarial. It's, this is a country that really hates itself. Like, really, really hates itself. Each half completely despises the other. And Canada's just not like that. Things can get heated, all that kind of stuff. But, at the end of the day, we just had an election in Canada, right? And I'll get around to how this goes around with the Toronto Blue Jays. We just had an election in Canada. And, we have the Liberal Party, Conservative Party, and, with some really strong differences of opinion about how to do, how we should run the country and all that kind of stuff. But when the election was over, here's the big difference between Canada and the US. When the election was over, the guy who lost, the member of the Conservative Party, the leader of the Conservative Party lost, and he called the winner, the Prime Minister, congratulated him on his victory, said, I look forward to, to being in government with you. I am looking forward to being the loyal opposition, that we are going to do our job, keeping you in check. That's the role of the opposition party. Keep the government in check. We're going to do it strenuously. We're going to do it vehemently, but congratulations on your win, and let's lead our country into a better place. And the guy who won the election, Mark Carney, leader of the Liberal Party, the Prime Minister of Canada, when he was doing his acceptance speech, he congratulated his opponent on a race well run. And this is what he said about his opponent. He said, he and I both love this country. That's what he said. He said, he and I both love this country. We have some very different ideas, but he and I both love this country. And he and I both want to see great things for Canada. We just have very different opinions about how we're going to get there. Can you imagine in the state of American politics? Can you, I'm sorry, we're so far removed from that. We are so far removed from the era of, why am I forgetting the name of the guy who ran against Obama? Who died recently? Guys, help me out. Who's the guy? Well, I'm looking at his face in my mind and I'm freezing on his name. John McCain. Like, we are, like, in America, they're so far removed now from the days of John McCain and Barack Obama, like two guys who had like very different ideas about the best ways forward for the country, but had huge amounts of respect for each other. And like, even though, I think you're crazy for wanting us to do this, but I know you're motivated by love of country. I know you're motivated. I know you want to do that because you believe it will be good for the country. Like, that's how, like, John McCain and Barack Obama did things. That's how Canadian politicians do things. It's like living in a weird, like, sci-fi dystopian view of the future here right now, though, and it's weird. So all this coming around to the Toronto Blue Jays. When a Canadian team goes to a Major League Championship final, whether it's the Toronto Raptors, we saw it happen when the Raptors won the NBA title. When Toronto gets to the end there, and if a Canadian team can finally get to a Stanley Cup final, you see Canada kind of rally behind it. Canada's very much united. Like, we are very different people. We have very different points of view, but at the end of the day, Canada and Canadians are a very united people. And it kind of pains me to say, as a Canadian living in the United States, married to an American woman and all that kind of stuff, that's just not true here. And I think both Democrats and Republicans can admit that this is not a united country at all. You may call yourself the United States, but it's very far from it. So yeah, anyway, there's that. Sorry, I went off on a big side quest there. Sorry about that. You were asking about the Blue Jays, and I went on this huge socio-political observation spiel. Sorry about that. All right. Next up, Super Nintendo Chalmers writes, great job as always. Thank you so much. Hope to meet you and make it to Michigan. I will definitely do Michigan. We will absolutely have a movie meetup, one or two in Michigan. Again, it won't be till after the winter, once we get into spring and early summer, because I don't want to drive the van up there in the snows. But we'll come to Michigan, absolutely, Super Nintendo Chalmers. All right. X-Men Superman fan is back. Or Superfan, I should say, writes, why don't people, I think what you mean to say is, why can't people tell the difference between Norma Jean and Marilyn Monroe? Because they're the same person? Monroe was just a character that Norma Jean created in some morbid way. She outlived her. Well, that's yes and no. That's yes and no. There was, I remember watching this one biography. There was definitely some Marilyn Monroe in Norma Jean. And there was definitely some Norma Jean in Marilyn Monroe. And the longer her career went before she passed away, I think you could see that there was a more, they were really one person sort of thing. And that was coming about. Listen, obviously, Marilyn Monroe is before my time, obviously, but she is one of the more fascinating characters in Hollywood history. Like, she really, really is. But I mean, the reason a lot of people don't tell this is because they were the same person. It's like saying, why can't you tell the difference between Paul Rubens and Pee Wee Herman? Well, there was a lot of Paul Rubin in Pee Wee, and there was Pee Wee in Paul Rubin. And so I get what you're saying. I do. But I think that's a very surface level way. I think when you really look at them, and especially as she got older, before she passed away so young, you could see that all the DNA was in there. Like, Norma Jean was Marilyn, and vice versa. And it become more and more apparent as they went on. Anyway. Great observation, though. Great question, man. I appreciate that. All right. Christopher Brickner writes, one of two. When deciding if a director is good or bad, you need to look at their whole filmography, not their films you've seen. Joaquin Roning is an example of that. Absolutely. And 100% I agree with you on that. It's, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of when Robert Pattinson got announced as being Batman. Because so many people had not seen this great filmography that he had put together in between Twilight and when he was going to do Batman. So for a lot of people, they had only seen Twilight, or were only familiar with his work in Twilight. Hence, Twilight Boy, right? Twilight Boy is Batman, right? But one of the arguments that we tried to make, like when they announced Robert Pattinson as Batman, we're like, holy crap, this is a great pick, was, guys, you have not seen Good Time, and you have not seen, like, we listed off all these movies that he has done. There's a reason directors like Christopher Nolan now are knocking on Robert Pattinson's door wanting to work with him. Guys, he has evolved and turned into a really, truly great actor. But they'd only ever really known about Twilight. And therefore, we're understandably like, wait a minute, Twilight Boy is Batman? I think the same is true with directors when you're talking about, because a lot of people, if all you do is evaluate a director on their best movie, you're going to get an over positive view of what they are. And if all you do is look at like their worst film, you're going to get overly negative. Like, there are so many people out there. Rian Johnson's a great example of this. A lot of people didn't like The Last Jedi. I'm agnostic when it comes to Last Jedi. There are things in The Last Jedi that I really loved, and there are things in The Last Jedi that I really did not love. So I'm kind of agnostic on The Last Jedi. I think overall I still kind of liked it, but I mean, it wasn't The Rise of Skywalker. But a lot of people, they talk about Rian Johnson. Oh, Rian Johnson sucks. Rian Johnson's a terrible director. You know nothing about movies, do you? No, I saw The Last Jedi. I saw, and you know, he sucks. Like, so you never saw Looper. You never saw Brick. Rian Johnson's a great director. Now, granted, if the only film I had of his to stand back and look at was The Last Jedi, if that was the only movie we had of his for me to look at, my opinion would not be that Rian Johnson's a great director. But if you're not a simpleton and you step back and look at his wider body of work, particularly his Knives Out films, I mean, his Knives Out films are so good, then yeah, you're going to get these very skewed perspectives if you just cherry pick what you're going to choose to evaluate on. If all you want to do is look at Rebel Moon as your basis for evaluating Zack Snyder, then sure, Zack Snyder sucks. But if you step back and you look at his whole filmography, you'll see this is actually a really gifted director who takes big swings, and his style is such that sometimes he's going to do his thing and maybe it won't work. But overall, he's made some really, really good films, man. And I think he's an exciting director. So it's, and by the way, this doesn't just apply to movies. I think there's a lot of people in different areas of life that, you know, microscope one thing rather than taking a broader view of things when trying to evaluate something. Anyway, that's just kind of my thing, but I agree with you. 100% I agree with you. All right. Next up, Christopher Brickner. Oh, sorry. 2 of 2. As Pirates 5, Maleficent 2, and Tron 3 had more mixed reviews, his lesser seen films like Max Manus, Kon-Tiki, and Young Women, and The Sea are good. Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, I forgot he did Maleficent too. Yeah, I didn't like that one. Anyway, that's aside. All right, Ismail Montoya writes, "Hey, John, appreciate you, my friend. Thank you so much. I wanted to ask if you ever did a review video of your van. I'm debating between one you have and an Airstream. I have never, you know what? Thank you for bringing, I should do a review of the van. I did an introduction video of the van before I had it, but I have not done a review of it. And you know what? You're right. I should do a review of my van, but I will tell you this right now. I love it. If you guys want to look it up online, I'll put it into the chat here, just so you know. It's called the Nuvo Plus. There it is. That's how you spell N-O-V-O. If you want to go look it up, I will do. You know what? I appreciate it. I am going to do a review of it. I love this van. I can live in the van. I have lived in the van. We've gone kind of across the country twice already in it, and we're going to be going across the country again in November for our movie meetups. And it has been everything I've wanted it to be. Had a few little hiccups, and I'll talk about that in the video. But I look very hard at the Airstream as well. I think you're getting better bang for your buck with the Nuvo. But anyway, I'll do a review of it, and then we'll go from there. By the way, if you do decide to get a Nuvo, you tell them, John Campea introduced me to your van. You tell them that. Anyway. All right. Thanks for the idea. I am definitely going to do a review video of the van. All right. X-Men Superman fan is back in. What, in your opinion, is the appeal of Rob Reiner films? Oh my God. There's so much. Rob Reiner, and he inherited a lot of this from his dad, Carl Reiner, rest in peace, who had a great, one episode thing on Parks and Recreation. Anyway, there is what's the best way to put this? There is a warm poignancy in his movies. You know, when you look at his films, there's a warmth to them. You know, even in some of the sharper stuff he did. By the way, he was a really fun actor too. He was a really, really fun actor. But even in his movies, when you get into some of the ridiculous stuff and whatever, whether you're talking about Spinal Tap and, oh my God, About a Boy. Within even the, what's the way I'm trying to, like, I keep saying sharp. Even in the moments and elements of his films that are supposed to be like harder edge or whatever, it still comes across as warm. You know? I'm just going through his filmography right now. I mean, dear heavens. My favorite film that he directed, and this is not going to surprise many people, is Princess Bride. Again, even amongst all the humor and the fantasy and all that kind of stuff, there's a warmth to it. There's a beautiful warmth, as you wish, to it. But then he could change gears. Yeah, whether, you know, doing something like Misery or A Few Good Men or whatever. It's, I would say, whether he was doing something that was borderline horror, borderline thriller, whatever, he found ways to have human warmth involved in it. And yeah, I now he hasn't done anything like, let me pull up his filmography here, because I don't think he's done a lot lately that I've been enamored with. Like, I'm not big on the new Spinal Tap. I think the last thing he did that I really liked, The Story of Us. I really did. Oh my God, I totally forgot he did The Ghost of Mississippi. I totally forgot he did that movie. Oh my God. Yeah, the dude was amazing. Dude was absolutely amazing. Still is. But again, but even as somebody who really appreciates a lot of the stuff that he's done, I do admit he hasn't done much in the last bunch of years that I've liked that much. So I'd love to see him make a resurgence, though. I really would. All right. Next up, Michael J. writes, which movie has a better jump in production quality from its original to its sequel? Star Wars to Empire Strikes Back or Terminator 2. Terminator to Terminator 2. Yeah. I mean, there was a bit of a jump between Star Wars and Empire, but I don't think all that much. He definitely had more money to work with for Empire. Absolutely he did. But I mean, when you look, and you know, this is stupid. We're finally getting to the age now in 2025, nearly 50 years. Star Wars is showing its age now. It is. But you show me another movie that's that old whose effects held up as well as long as the Star Wars ones did. It's kind of, but I would say easily the more noticeable jump was Terminator to Terminator 2. At least that's what I think. All right. Let's see. And our final one today is Julie Lilly, who writes, I've never been to an IMAX theater. Oh, really? You're in for a treat. Not sure how to phrase this, but how much am I missing out, or IMAX to a regular theater is like? You know what? To be honest, really, it's not going to change your life. I don't think there's any, like, my favorite is the AMC Prime, the Dolby Theater at AMC Prime, or Prime at Dolby, whatever it is. That's my favorite. I also love IMAX, but I don't think any of them are like, oh my God. If you just went into a regular movie theater and saw that movie, you haven't really seen the movie. It's not life-changing. Like, yes, every once in a while you're going to get, like, a movie will come out and you'll hear people say, watch this one on the biggest screen possible. And they're right, because you're going to get a little bit more on that type of format. But I've never personally seen a movie where it's completely night and day. Like, if you just went into Theater 5 and watched the movie, or then went into the IMAX screen and watched it, yeah, if you watch Avatar on the IMAX screen, you're going to get a little bit of a better experience. But it's not I've never found it to be a night and day difference. Literally, as somebody who's gone into movie theaters thousands and thousands and thousands of times, I don't really think it's that big of a deal. Like, if all other things are being equal, and you're going into, again, we'll just use Avatar as an example. You're going in to watch the new Avatar film, and you got a choice to watch it in Theater 5, or you have a choice to watch it on the IMAX screen. Yeah, I would say all other things being equal, go watch it on the IMAX screen. But it's not like you're missing out on the movie if you go to see it in Theater 5. You're still going to get a great screen. You're going to get hopefully great projection. You're going to get a great experience. So I would say, yeah, treat yourself. A little more Parks and Rec for you. Treat yourself. Go see a movie in an IMAX, and you'll see what you've been missing out on. But you're going to realize it's not like, having sex for the first time. It's like, oh my God, this is what everybody's been talking about. No, it's going to be good. You're going to have a fun experience. I don't think it's going to be life-changing, though. All right, guys, listen, I got a couple of more minutes here. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a couple of questions from you guys in the live audience. If you're watching, look what I just put in the live chat. I put in all capital letters, question, : That way I know you're asking me a question rather than just talking amongst yourselves. So I'm going to take a couple of minutes. I'm not going to answer all of them. I'm just going to cherry pick out a couple of questions to answer before I go watch the World Series. And we're going to start off here with Damashi, who writes, what did you think of Welcome to Derry episode 2? I haven't seen it yet. Because Saturday or Friday was a really busy day for us. And today I haven't had a chance, and I'm going to go watch the World Series now. I think I'll probably try to watch it tonight before I go to bed. Because I like the first episode a lot, so I'm going to watch the next one tonight. Okay, next up. I am Pratt Tith, I hope I'm saying that right, says, did you watch Witcher Season 4? Nope, and I have no intention of it. No intention of watching Season 4. I'll be honest with you. I love Witcher Season 1. Loved it. Really liked Witcher Season 2. I'm not a big fan of Witcher Season 3, and it just seems diminishing returns. So I'll be honest with you, I have not watched Season 4, and I'm not planning on watching Season 4. Let's see here. The Mr. Spawn Trap writes, question. When you do realistically plan on retiring, and if you do, will Rob or Jonathan Voico inherit the channel? No, nobody's inheriting my channel. Or is that the final curtain? I'm playing with some ideas. I'm playing with some ideas right now. I will either straight up sell the channel. I've had offers. I've had a couple of offers that were simply not good enough. And I've had a couple of offers that I was really there's one in particular. I had this one offer that I was really intrigued by, but it never kind of worked out, which was too bad. Or I might try to find somebody that I can just replace myself with. So while like neither Jonathan or Ray or Rob will inherit the channel, what I might try to do is find somebody in the next year or two that can replace me, that can sit in this chair, do the show with Jonathan, with Rob, all that kind of stuff. And have somebody, maybe I can find somebody that can replace me, and then I'll still own it, even though I'm kind of retired. I mean, I don't know. I've got a lot of different, or I'll just shut the whole thing down. So one of those things, but no one is just going to inherit, the channel. Let's see. Where are we at? I'm having a hard time finding them now because the thing is scrolling. All right, here we go. Manu writes, question, do you think David Zaslav personally picked James Gunn, or did somebody recommend him? I think both are true. I think there was recommendations, and then he ultimately made the decision. I mean, it was his choice to pick James Gunn, but I'm sure a plethora of names were put in front of David Zaslav. Like, I'm sure David Zaslav had people that he said, okay, bring me 20 names. And his people went out, brought them to him, then he's the one who made the decision. I'm fairly positive that's probably the way it worked out. All right. Bullet Train Stan says, is it crazy to say Succession is one of the best series of all time? I don't believe it is, but it's not crazy to say. It's a great show. Succession is a great show. And if to you it's one of the greatest, then to you it's one of the greatest. So yeah, so it's not, to me, I like it a lot. I like Succession a lot. I think it's a great show. Do I think it's one of the greatest shows of all time? I personally do not, but I think it's awesome. And I don't think it's crazy if you think it is. It's perfectly good. All right. And that'll do it, guys, for today's installment of Open Mic. Thank you so much for taking some time out on this Saturday to sit down with me as we chat about some of our favorite things in the world. Really appreciate all of you. Big special thank you to all you guys who sent in questions, both the super chat questions and sending in questions in the live chat there. Really appreciate you guys, not just because you supported our channel, but also because you gave us great fun things to talk about. All right, guys. We will be back again on Monday. We're looking forward to having you there on the next installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you again, everybody, for being here. I appreciate you all. I'm going to go watch the World Series, where I hope the Jays win, but I'm also pretty happy if the Dodgers win. So I'm really in a no-lose situation. Pretty good as a fan. Anyway, guys, that'll do it for me. I'll talk to you later. And until next time, my friends, bye-bye.